start with the first panel with the recruiter side. So here I have with me Alfred Karlsson, who is our HR strategist at Sida, and also Harald, director at the Swedish Ministry for Foreign Affairs. So you can come and have a seat up here. And we also have online Jenny Grenander. She is a HR manager at the Swedish Committee for Afghanistan, or SOC. Welcome. I think we can start with that you all give a short presentation with your name, your current role, and a bit of like background. What did you study and how did you get to the position that you're in today? Do you want to start, Alfred?
Yes, I can start. My name is Alfred. I'm a HR strategist at Sida. I got here. I studied human resources as a major degree and psychology as a minor degree, and I was really I got the opportunity through a short-term contract at Sida, 3 months, and then which got prolonged for about a month, and then also now it's prolonged to February, the end of February. I'm in the position as an HR strategist. So that's sort of a short summary of my position.
Have you had any other jobs before coming to Sida?
Yes, but not really relevant. It's within another branch.
But you didn't come to Sida through an internship. It was a short-term contract.
It was a short-term contract.
Yes. Okay. Harald.
Okay, well, I think I'm more than twice as old as Alfred, so I could speak a bit longer about my background. But anyway, I'm with the Ministry for Foreign Affairs, and I have 1 more year or less than a year before retirement. And my last year at the ministry, I work at the personnel department with recruitment and placing colleagues, diplomat colleagues around the world to our different more than 100 embassies and missions. I've been with the ministry for more than 23 years. Half of the time, or more than half of the time, I've been in foreign postings: Manila twice, Geneva, New York, Singapore. And I've been switching, like all diplomats in the Swedish Foreign Service, switching between different areas. So I've dealt with basically everything in foreign affairs. Maybe most in international development cooperation, so at least 1/3 of my time, but mostly in multilateral development cooperation, so with the United Nations and the development banks, World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, and so on. I was a bit older than my colleagues in my batch when I entered the ministry. I was 33 years old. The other ones were more like 26, 27. So I had worked for 10 years before joining the ministry and in private sector. And I'm very happy that I made the switch for entering the Foreign Service. I'm happy to be here to talk more about it.
What did you study?
I studied at the Stockholm School of Economics, so it was a mixture of the business and economics, and then I took a master's degree in economics in the US.
Okay, thank you. And Jenny?
Yes, sorry, do you hear me good?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so my name is Jenny. I'm so sorry I can't be there with you tonight, but I hope this will be okay anyways. I am currently the HR manager at the Swedish Committee for Afghanistan. I've been here for a little bit more than 6 years. First, I started as an HR manager, and since 3 years back, I'm also head of finance and administration. I don't have my background in development sector, but I came from Akademikerförbundet SSR, one of the academic unions in Sweden. And I think that a way into SCA was the knowledge of membership organizations, civil society organizations, and knowing how to orient in that sector. And that has worked quite well, also working at an international NGO. I studied human resources. I have a bachelor in human resources or in sociology. Sorry, can't say that in English, can I? I started to study quite late. I was 26 when I started to study, and I had a long background within the trade unions also before my studies. And then I ended up at SCA 6 years ago just because I basically fell in love in their work and said to myself, I have to work there one day. And I kept following every time there was an announcement, and then this position was available. And yeah, that's a short background. I do travels to Afghanistan every now and then within my scope of work, since I do work with all our expatriates. We have currently we have 16. After New Year's, we will be around 21 internationals in Kabul. The rest of our staff is local Afghans. So we have around 8,000 staff, but only 16 internationals, and we are around 25 at the Swedish, at the Stockholm management office. So we are not that big, but still recruiting some every now and then.
Okay, thank you. I don't know what goals or aims that you have with your future careers, but I'm very happy that the three of you are here tonight, because I feel that you represent some sort of like broad ways. We have the authorities, like the Swedish agency, and also one more multilateral, and also civil society. So I feel like we have a good representation here of the sector at large. And the same goes for the panel that we will have later also. But we can continue with you, Jenny. If you're a recent graduate and you have a great interest in global sustainable development, what types of positions can you mainly find at your organization?
Mm-hmm. The biggest unit, the only real program work we have in Sweden is with communications. So our biggest unit is the communication unit, also doing fundraising, and we still have our own newspaper that we actually have it printed. So we have journalists employed. Then we also have the membership section. Since we have 3,500 members, we have 2 persons working with membership development and engagement questions. A bit like Fufto on certain things, but with a different audience, I would say. Then we have, of course, we have the aid coordination unit, and we have my unit that does finance and administration. But I would say that usually it's working with communications. Since we're a small organization, we usually only recruit people that has some experience. I have very few that just finished their studies. But with that said, we have trainees and internships every now and then, and I have quite some that actually had their trainee internship at SCA, and then we employed them after that because we knew them, and they would come in and do a short mission, you know, some social media or covering up for somebody being on parental leave or so on, and that are now permanent employees.
Yeah, it's interesting that you lift that, because I think that is a common way to get in, to get a short-term contract or doing an internship. But you said that you want some experience. What kind of experience is it that's like important? So, yeah.
Well, usually you want some kind of experience from the specific position that you apply for. Maybe not a lot, but 1 or 2 years with equal questions. It doesn't really have to be the same, but equal questions in somehow. If you apply for a communications job, we expect you to have been doing some communication before. I would say that could have been done in a voluntary way. You know, if you're engaged like in FUF and doing voluntary work for FUF, that could also be a way to gain experience before you get your first job. But usually we ask for some qualifications.
Okay. At Sida, Alfred, the same question. What are mainly the types of positions that you apply for?
Yeah, I'm afraid I could give a similar answer. We mostly hire for senior positions at Sida, I would say. So it would be pretty difficult to get in straight from university. I was really lucky. And now, in retrospect, when I've seen how many people are applying and what kind of background you need to have to different positions. But you can look at the and try to apply to our personal capacity programs, JPO, BD programs.
Are you aware of those programs?
Yes, and the UN volunteer.
Yeah.
Can you very shortly talk about those programs? The JPO. It's a junior what is that?
Yeah, junior professional officer program. My knowledge isn't very deep, but I know that's sort of the it's not our program. It's mostly the UN.
Yeah, so but there are programs at Sida that are more for junior professionals.
Yeah, you was thinking about the trainee.
But I mean the JPO, the UN volunteers. So there are other opportunities to get into Sida. What do you think made you get the chance? What do you know? Like, can you pick out what experience did you have?
I think maybe in HR, honestly, and that's sort of mostly the thing you have to focus on is what kind of qualities and what background do you need to have, and focus on those and see what are the requirements that we put in our job applications, job adverts. That's the main focus.
Okay, Harald, what type of candidate is like more attractive for you at your workplace? What people do you attract mostly?
Well, I think I should start with saying that the main entry point for a job in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for those who want to work with as a diplomat is through the annual diplomatic training program. And I can talk a little bit about that.
Yes, please.
But other ways of working in the Swedish Foreign Service for young people to start with would be as an intern. And every autumn and spring, we hire hundreds of interns. And they work for 1 semester, 4 months or so. And they have to be in a university program, so it should be part of the studies, part of the program. And it's a great opportunity. And I think we started with this 25 years ago or so. And I remember the first interns that I came across where I was working Some of them are now ambassadors in Swedish embassies. So it's actually, if those who get the chance of being an intern in the foreign ministry and do well, many of them tend to be asked, could you work for the summer? Could you be a substitute for a few months? And then they apply for this diplomatic training program. And then people within the ministry, they know that they have done very well. So that's one way.
Very, very short, the diplomat training program, what are the requirements? What's the process to get in there? Well,
the process is you apply in September and it takes almost a year. You enter in August, so it's a very long process. And you are first, the applicants are first selected on the basis of their application, the CV, the cover letter, and a written test. And maybe half or a third are those who pass it, they go to what we call assessment center. And here we work with an HR consulting company, and the applicants go through various kinds of tests and interviews, and then maybe half of them are continue to interviews with the selection committee. A committee of about 10 people. And those people represent different parts of the Swedish society, the parliament, trade unions, business sector, the ministry, and so on. And after that, the final selection is made. So, and typically 15 to 20 applicants in the end are selected.
And how many apply? Approximately?
Yeah, I think this year about 700.
So 20 out of 700?
Yeah, something like that.
It's a tough competition.
It's very tough. And some people try many times, and some people get in the third time or fourth time. So those who don't make it the first time, don't give up, try again. And what we look for, well, first of all, you have to be a Swedish citizen. But we emphasize a lot diversity. Diversity in many ways makes our foreign service more effective. So if you have foreign background, that can be a plus, but you have to be a Swedish citizen. And you have to have an academic degree.
Is a bachelor enough, or do you need a
bachelor?
master's?
Is enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it can be almost anything. I mean, traditionally, in the old days, it was law school. But it can be business, it can be journalism, political science, it can be environment studies, history. So basically anything. We want diversity. You need to have language proficiencies. Of course, you have to be able to speak and write Swedish and English very well. And you also need to have a good level of proficiency in 1 out of 6 languages, which are Russian, Arabic, French, Spanish, German, Mandarin. So those are the key languages that we are looking for, except Swedish and English. So you need to be reasonably proficient in 1 of those 6. And if you know any other languages, that's a plus. You need to have international background. In other words, lived abroad or studied abroad or worked abroad. And most of all, you need to have a great interest in international affairs. And you need to show that in doing this recruitment process. Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay.
More or less.
Yeah, but it's good that you are bridging over to my next question, because apart from then like relevant studies, you're also mentioning experience from abroad. That's a merit. What about at the Swedish Committee for Afghanistan, Jenny? You also said like you need to have experience within like the profession, like if it's communication, you need to have a communication background. What other experience would you say are like good merits, looking at, for example, volunteer engagement, abroad experience, is it languages? What is weighing high?
Well, if you want to go and work for us in Afghanistan, you have to have conflict experience. We almost never send anybody to Afghanistan to be employed in Kabul if they haven't been to a conflict country and have some experience, mostly because of the pressure of living in that kind of area. If you work at the Stockholm office, that's not really necessarily. You need to know English because that's how we communicate to our Afghan colleagues. But other language, usually you need to know Swedish at the Stockholm office. Depending, if you work with communications, your Swedish knowledge needs to be really high, I would say. But my IT coordinator is nowadays is really good in Swedish, but he usually works in English anyways. So Swedish is usually a must, but English is the really important, I would say. Otherwise, having experience and show interest, if you can show you've done things, you've been engaged to things, like that is good, especially when you get a lot of CVs and they more or less all look the same. Then you want to show that this person has been doing something extra or has the drive. That doesn't mean that you need double bachelor's, master. And if you go to Afghanistan, I might look for a master degree depending on the possibilities to get a work permit there. But in Sweden, bachelor would do just perfect. I do think I even have some that just have after that has higher studies, but not necessarily a bachelor, to be honest.
Okay. I'm curious, when you say like that you have to have conflict experience, is it enough if you have lived or that you come from a country where you have experienced conflict, or is it more like that you have been working in the humanitarian sector? Or
I would say working, because there is a big difference. The experience of living in conflict is valid enough. It's of great value to be able to handle the situation in Afghanistan. The bigger problem is that if you're native in a conflict country, you still usually have the opportunity to move around, to actually make some decisions of your life. When you work for SCA in Kabul, we decide whom you're allowed to visit, you're not allowed to walk the streets of Kabul, and you have to be able to cope with that. And that's usually quite hard for people the first time. So we want people to have some experience from that kind of situation.
Okay, thank you. I also want to have some time if you have any questions that you want to ask here in the panel. So I will just quickly jump to a question about the interview. So if you apply for a job and you make it to an interview, Alfred, do you have any like tips there? What is important to think about if you manage to come to it?
I would recommend to focus on the requirements and the what we're looking for, what's being written in the job advert, and then also to bring up specific examples in the interview where you shown these qualities and skills that we're asking, and maybe try to don't talk so much about like your overall interest in development jobs or sector, or more about like the actual role or the position that you're applying. That would be sort of an overall recommendation in interviews.
Do you have anything else to add to that, Harald?
I think one can be more or less prepared for an interview, and I strongly recommend be very prepared. You know, you can Google and find lists of interview questions and so on. It's usually quite standard. So just go through those lists, think about it in advance, and so you get a good sense of what you should answer. And then be prepared to explain why you apply for the job and or how you think that you can contribute to that job. I mean, those are basic questions that will help very much, I think, at the interview.
Jenny, is it important for a candidate to also ask questions during an interview, would you say?
I think if you have relevant questions, I think it's all I mean, if you're curious about something, if you want something to be more clear, or you have questions about the position that you had thought through, then I think it's good to do it. I don't find it important just for asking the question, if that makes any sense.
Because I think that's how we as candidates often feel, that to show that you are interested, you need to also ask something. But that's just relevant questions. Do you have any other tips on that? How to prepare yourself for an interview?
Well, I think it's like the others in the panel said, to give examples, like think through what kind of experience do I have? What did I learn from that? How do I want to proceed? You know, show your experience and answer the question. Sometimes sometimes you ask a question, and then when you get an answer that is like, oh, was I unclear, or did you just not answer the question? And that could be spoken about, but sometimes you end up with candidates that actually don't answer the question. And I also think it's okay to say, I have no experience from that exact situation you're asking about right now. Then you could add sometimes, like, I have experience for this. This is maybe not a similar, but that's the closest thing. It's like, you don't have to make up answers if you don't have them. It's better to be honest.
Okay, final question before. Yeah.
Jenny got 2 questions in the chat, so maybe you can answer them. She can answer them out loud so that everyone here can.
Okay, I got a question if we hire non-Swedish nationals for the work in Afghanistan. And yes, out of my 16 expatriates, I have 3 Swedes, but we have employees from India, Kenya, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Bangladesh, Finland, England, Zimbabwe, and Nepal, if I have them all in my mind right now. So yes, a lot of we have a few positions that are only for Swedes, like the country director, and the communications person needs to be Swedish speaking with experiences from the Swedish media landscape. But all other positions in Afghanistan is available for everybody. Did I get one more question, you said, or just one?
It's in the chat right now.
Okay, can Harald, you wanted to add something to that question very quick?
Yeah, I mentioned that you have to be a Swedish citizen to work for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But if we look at the Swedish embassies and missions abroad, many of the local staff are non-Swedish. Most of the local staff are not Swedish. So, I mean, that's an opportunity for non-Swedes to work for the Swedish Foreign Service locally. But then those recruitments there are done locally by the embassies.
What was the second question?
The second question is, I'm studying a master's program in human rights and conflict management. Is that enough to consider as an experience? I would say that it's a great education, but I would recommend you some work-life experience to add on to it, or some other volunteer work, or, you know, some more practical experience. But I would say it's a great program to have when you apply.
Yeah, could I add on? I don't want to be harsh, but if you're studying a political science degree, you probably have sort of it's less probable, because it'll be for you to get hired, because there's so much, there's a lot of people with that background that apply for jobs, or especially at Sida. So I would recommend more a degree in maybe engineering. We have a shortage within the energy sector. Business degree, law. Yeah, that would be.
Is it enough to have like a complementary course? I mean, of course, like you don't get a law degree from a course, but I mean, because I guess that a lot of us now talking for like that we often come from the political science, global studies, social science, because we want this broad theoretical knowledge. But you're saying that is it good to like narrow down a bit?
To give yourself a better chance, I would focus more on maybe this like business, or maybe get into that sort of. We have controller, like financial controllers. We have a shortage of, so that's you work in the private sector maybe, or also some other government agency, or that would be an advantage, I would say.
Okay. Do we have any other questions here?
I have one. Is it enough economic courses, or do you need like another degree?
Depends on the position, but I would recommend you to also work sort of within economics, for example. Yeah.
Any other question? Yeah.
Yes, I have one. All three of you are mentioning that you need experience prior to entering the workplaces. And I'm applying for jobs right now, so I've seen that from almost all places I'm interested in, usually like 3 to 5 years of relevant experience.
Yeah.
But to me, it's hard to find concrete examples of what those constitute. So if you could be like very specific of how, or give examples of what have people done previously. And I understand it's like, yeah, they've been in hardship areas or worked with municipalities or authorities, but like more specifically, because it's a big struggle to find.
What position are you?
Similar to what all three of you have been.
Yeah, but what role do you want to?
I'm in a very junior state, so it's like entry jobs. I mean, as desk officers, either within political science, public health, development studies. But just what have people usually done prior to coming to, like all three of you?
Hard to say. I mean, I've recruited people, some that have experience in the UN, but also, as I said, they've already have some experience, and I'm not sure how they got. Like, I'm sure you probably have a better answer than me in how they got to that position and they got those jobs. So, yeah, sorry.
In the case of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we work across such a broad spectrum of areas, so it's difficult to specify certain areas where you would like the applicants to have experience from. So in our case, almost any work experience is appreciated. But of course, to work for an international organization like the UN or work with marketing for an international Swedish company, work in Swedish government office are probably more valuable than working in as a tennis trainer. So, but it's really difficult to say that certain types of jobs are more appreciated.
I think it's a very good question to keep for the next panel.
May I add one thing, Anna? I think that I usually say that don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. But you know that short-term contract that you're not really that keen on, but it's in the right organization. It's not exactly to the level of what you would have wanted, and it's only 2 months. I think that's the great way to get in. It's not always that they are announced, so that's why you get involved voluntarily in organizations you're interested in, because it's different with the government agencies, I know, but networking with other NGOs, for instance, and having those short-term contracts, that builds experience, and it also builds a reputation about being interested and hardworking and so on. And I think that's a great way to get the first experience.
Yeah, I agree to that, especially if we talk about the civil society sector. There's a lot of short-term contracts. Yeah.
And Sida loves our employees by somehow, I have noticed. Not because I'm bitter that I have to recruit new persons, because that's nice too, but it's a way to get in an NGO, I would say, and you have experience from program work, and then now you have to correct me if I'm wrong, but then it's also more interesting to see that, because then you did program work at the other side and so on.
Yeah.
Yes. The question about the work experience is that work experience in UN. In the merit. So do you count internship as a work experience? Because you itself does not treat internship as a work experience. So does Sida treats internship as a work experience? Or
it depends entirely on how that internship, like what did you do in your internship? Like what responsibility did you have exactly?
I was working in research and development at UNESCO, for example, if I went to apply theoretically at Sida's education department. Does this experience count as a work experience, or it's rather overlooked because it's internship?
It's really tough to say, but again, look at what are we asking for? Are we asking for, like, I don't know, some experience, like background and that you've had? What did you say exactly that you did?
Well, yeah, like in research and development at UNESCO.
Yeah. And what were your daily tasks and what were your responsibilities?
Like being part of education research and mostly like drafting some concept notes and desk research, like this kind of work. Because
you have to sort of match those towards like the job advert that we put out. Like,
okay, so
I have content. Yeah, so more the
I think in our case, if you're 24 years old and you have worked for 3 months in a UN office, that shows that you're interested in international affairs. So it doesn't matter so much what you actually did there. It just shows what orientation you have in your interests, and that's very important.
Final question.
I have a question to Swedish panelists. Technical question. I'm just wondering if any of you are using data-driven recruiting software systems now. It's very popular. A lot of companies and big corporations are using, and sometimes applications are not reviewed by humans, and it goes through first through the software system, which rejects many applications. So I was given a chance to reply.
Yeah, I will just repeat the question for Zoom if you didn't hear. He was asking about data systems in recruiting, if they if they use it and how it works, if they like sort out applications.
No, I mean for Sida we read the applications, but again we have selection questions at the beginning of when you're applying, and it's pretty black and white. You have 3 years of experience in some field, or you do not have those. It's if you don't have that experience. I mean, we're a government agency, and we abide by the I don't know what it's called in English, lagen om offentlig anställning, which is tjänsteplikt, which is so we.
You have more regulations.
Yeah, more regulated than but no, we don't have a if you send in an application, we will.
Same here.
I also read all the applications, but I read the CV, so have a strong CV sent to me. Don't put important things in your cover letter, because that I will only read with my final candidates. It's the CV that is important, and it needs to be reader friendly. But like the others said, if I have required something special and I don't see it in your CV, then I will put it aside. But I do read all CVs that are sent, and I only look at applications that are actually going for a special recruitment. There is really no use to send me a spontaneous application, because I want them to be within the system, so I have everything collected. So I will reply and say, please find a position you find interesting that matches your profile and apply through the system.
Thank you. I know that you need to go very soon, Jenny. I hope that, yeah?
One more question also. Can we?
Okay.
I think this one is directed to Harald. Do you have any tips regarding living or housing when you have an internship at the embassy abroad?
The package is not very generous for interns. There's no salary, and if you have an internship with an embassy, you have to find living accommodations yourself. But there are certain places you can apply for financial aid for this. I think through Sida actually. So, and also you get since this is part of the university program that you're in, you get your student loans and whatever it's called, allowances. So that way, your standard of living will be basically the same as when you're a student.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you very much to all the panelists. I had a question for Karl. I was a bit curious as to one of the requirements for the diplomatic program. I believe is having lived abroad, but outside the scope of studies or internships. I believe. Do you have any examples of what those would be?
The basic thing is that we look for people with international experience. So you can get this experience through living abroad, or studying abroad, or working abroad, or extensive traveling. So it doesn't matter so much what you have done abroad, but you need to have the international experience and, of course, show that you have a keen interest in international affairs.
Okay. Do you have like 3 short career tips? What do you want to leave with them as a final comment? Jenny, do you want to start?
Well, I think first of all, I think you should decide what do you want to do? What is your interest right now? Like I said before, don't be afraid to do something a bit less qualified or with a short-term contract if it's within the sector you're interested in. And third, I think don't look at career as a ladder. It's more about climbing around, doing things that you're going to be at work 40 hours a week. So try to do something that you actually find interesting, and don't be afraid to change. I mean, if you change every month because when you're on a permanent contract, yeah, that would look strange. But otherwise, it's just collecting experience and follow that dream.
Thank you. Alfred.
Yeah, I would say patience is the key. That would be I would also say try to look at job or job efforts. They're on Sida and look at the requirements if you're interested in a position. And also, it's not just. You don't only have to work as a desk officer. There's other positions as well that you could apply for. Yeah.
Well, I think first of all, my greatest tip is consider applying for a job with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to become a Swedish diplomat. It's an incredibly awarding job, which I have experienced for 33 years. You, as a Swedish diplomat, you can work in different areas. Typically, you don't stay within international development for 40 years or 30 years or 20 years, but you have an opportunity to get into all different global affairs areas. And you have an opportunity to work in different parts of the world. So there's a variety of areas you work in and a variety of geographic places we're in. So if you're curious about this, if it sounds attractive to you, it's a fantastic job to have. So I mentioned initially the qualification or requirements for entering the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So take note of what I mentioned and sort of try to live up to those qualifications. Languages, international experience, get an academic degree, have some work experience. And like what Jenny said, it doesn't matter so much what you exactly do, but just show that you take initiatives, the job experience shows that you have an interest in international affairs. And again, what I said, if you apply for the Swedish diplomat training program, you don't make it, try again next year or the next year and just build up your qualifications. And I'm happy after this to talk to any one of you who is interested in more information. And I should mention also that you can apply for international jobs outside the Swedish Foreign Service, jobs with international organizations through the ministry. And you can sign up for a newsletter so that you get every month or 3 months or so a newsletter with new vacancies.
Good and easy tip to do.
So let me know if you're...
Yeah, do you have time to stay around for some time?
Sure.
You also, Alfred?
Yeah.
So then you can also, if you have more questions, keep them till after the next panel. Thank you so much. Okay. Now I want to welcome up on stage Karl, Follin, and Donna-Maria Maalouf. And we also have Robin Vikström with us, live from Zimbabwe. Welcome. You are now we have heard the more like recruiting side, and now you are more representing the young professionals. who have managed to get that job in this sector. So I want to start directly the same question. Can you give a short presentation of yourself, where you work, your role, and a bit like short study, previous job experience? Do you want to start, Donna-Maria?
Yes, so my name is Donna-Maria. I'm 26 years old, and my background is in my bachelor's in global studies, and my master is leadership for sustainability from Malmö University. And if I just give like a quick summary of what I've done, like to end up where I am today, I do want to mention my exchange semester in Dublin, international relations, my internship at a civil society organization in Boston, Jamaica, writing my thesis in Lebanon about the women's movement, my traineeship with the Swedish sober movement in Brussels, but also traveling out of curiosity, backpacking. I think that's also important to mention. And my work as a coordinator for YMCA in Gothenburg with newly arrived youths. And right now I'm working in CONCORD Sweden, which is a platform for Swedish society, 81 members working in development cooperation. Yeah, so that's the path chronologically, I would say.
And what is your role with CONCORD?
Yes, so my role right now, as Sweden is entering soon to be have the presidency role in the Swedish Council, my role is to coordinate the work that the civil society has to do before, but also during. So it's planning activities for our members. It's right now I'm planning a study trip to Brussels with 15 participants. So also contacting the politicians that we're going to meet, and the institutions, and also the designing the program. So also keeping in touch with the members, but also monitoring what's happening. Yeah, so that's my role.
Thank you. Karl.
Yeah, impressive CV. I've done many things. I haven't done quite so many things, but yeah, my name is Karl. I work as a desk officer at the Ministry for Foreign Affairs, and I work for the Middle East and North Africa department. So I work with 3 different countries: Tunisia, Egypt, and Libya. And prior to that, I did an internship to the Swedish representation to the European Union in Brussels, where I worked a lot with international development cooperation and human rights, and followed all the EU process over there for approximately 6 months, I think. And then I've been studying quite a lot. I've been studying for 6.5 years, I think, because I couldn't really make up my mind what I wanted to do. So I studied both economics and business, a bachelor, and then I did a bachelor in political science, adding some more courses, and a few language courses. And then I ended up with a master's in political science. And I think I graduated this June, I think, yeah. It's already in my head, we studied for many years. And I also worked a couple of years for a Swedish civil society organization, IFSU, which you might have heard of. And they work with like comprehensive sexuality education, they work with abortion rights, and they work with LGBTQ rights. A lot in Sweden, but also a lot internationally in South Africa and Kenya, for example, and Thailand, and yeah, all around the place. So yeah, I think that's a short introduction of what I've been doing the past years.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions to follow up on this. Robin.
Good evening, Stockholm. It feels a bit like the Eurovision jury voting, being here. Can you hear me, first of all?
Yes.
Yeah, great. So good evening, everyone. My name is Robin. Pleasure to be here. I'm sorry I couldn't be there physically, but I'm in Zimbabwe currently, so it's a bit of a stretch to go for a one-night seminar. I guess I'm the oldest panel member out of the 3 of us, but I still, I must admit that you have impressive CVs and backgrounds, both of you, so it'd be an interesting panel to co-chair with you here. So I'm 33 currently, and I'm currently doing a JPO position, so a junior professional officer, which is a Sida funded program. So basically Sida is paying for young professionals to be placed in different UN organizations all over the world. There has been previously about 30 of those positions a year that were announced by Sida. And one of them I got last year then, and I was onboarded here in Zimbabwe in January this year. So I've almost done a year in Zimbabwe at this point. I don't know if the JPO program, how it will look in the future. I know it's been paused for this year, and I know we have a new government in place now, and I think we're yet to see whether it will actually continue, but I hope so, because it's a great opportunity, and I'll have plenty of chances to talk more about that. But previous to my JPO position that I'm currently holding, I've done a range of different things. When I studied, I also did a mismatch of courses from the beginning, which made me end up with a Bachelor of Arts in Arabic, actually. So a language study, pure language study bachelor, which then led me to be able to do a master's in Middle Eastern studies. So that's my background, with some courses in political science, statistics, and some other international relations and so on, history courses. After that, I joined the Swedish Migration Agency, as a case officer, and later as an analyst, where I worked for in total almost 5 years. And after that, I was actually sacked from that position due to the politically disputed climate that migration is. That means less money for the migration agency, and thus the young people had to go from the very interesting position you can hold there. But that wasn't too bad, because I actually got a position at the Swedish Police Authority in Malmö. So I basically worked at the same department that Saga Norén works at in Brunn, Länskrim Malmö. So I'm actually the closest you'll probably meet to someone who's actually part of that series. So that's always something. I can also give you good inputs into Na blå linjen, serien, which how much is true and how much is not from that. But I was there for almost a year, and then I got this position basically. So I think, in short, I won't be talking too much longer now, but in short, I think I'm kind of an example of someone who have always strived to work internationally and the development sector, but my way has not been maybe that straight, let's say. I haven't completely aimed to go here from the beginning. I did do an internship at the Swedish Embassy in Khartoum in Sudan during my master's, but after that I've been working at home in government administration, and that has been super great and super fun. So I'm not the clearest path to come here, but I'm yet here. So that's me.
Can you very shortly mention your role? Where are you posted?
Oh yeah, that's also important, I guess. So I'm actually, the JPO position I hold is as a program policy officer. So it's basically like a project manager for the programs that WFP implement. I'm working with climate change and resilience. So resilience is a bit of a new field to WFP, but it's basically moving away from humanitarian assistance, looking more at the developmental assistance. And I'm working with programs where we're trying to build resilience among smallholder farmers in Zimbabwe. Through a range of different activities. So I also want to say to the point to that I'm basically managing that program with the skills that I've acquired from before, but I have no background whatsoever in climate smart agriculture, in climate work, or any of those things that I'm actually working directly with. But that's what I'm doing in short.
Yeah, okay, I want to stay with you before I move to you with the same question, because what we hear is that you come from a quite another background than what you're doing right now, working with the police authority and studying Arabic, which is not a language in Zimbabwe, as far as I know. What do you think made you end up there? What do you think is the assets that you have, or the experience that made you get this specific position? Because I know that applying for a JPO is also quite a high competition. So what do you think? What do you see is the asset or the experience that you had?
I would say that it's partly chance and partly strategy that led me here. As I said, I think my academic career or experiences kind of show that I have an international interest. which actually led me to the migration agency in the first place, because that's also a very international kind of work, although it's completely based in Sweden. Then what actually led me here, I've been looking for the JPO positions for years, and I did apply several times before. The years before, I actually applied for specific JPO positions. So when I found something, for instance, at UNHCR in Amman working with refugees, I would apply for that specific position, putting a lot of effort to that specific position, and then never hearing back from Sida, basically, because there were probably some other really highly qualified candidate, because there's a lot of qualified candidates for these positions. So what I did this time actually was looking more widely, and I had more experiences, to be honest, but maybe not those kind of previous UN experiences that that I know Sida values for the JPO positions. So I've never worked with the UN before, but I applied for basically all the JPO positions that I was qualified to apply for, and I got the one that I probably did not expect that I would end up in, because to be honest, when I got the interview for this position, I picked up my CV and cover letter again, and I was like, oh, I don't know why they are calling me for a climate change and resilience position. But it's quite clear from the position I'm in now, and that's what I want to send to all the participants as well, that it's very different to work in terms of a technical area, which climate change and resilience definitely is. Like, to apply for work like that can still be relevant for you, because you can have project management skills, you can have data analysis skills, you can have legal skills, you can have engineering skills, you could have a lot of different skills that could be relevant. So it's always difficult to kind of look at an application or like a job posting and completely determine whether it's relevant or not. I think the fact that I'm here is testament to that. So as long as you're qualified, and I want to stress that, as long as you're qualified, you can still apply for positions that maybe feels a bit off track for you, because it could actually open up very interesting possibilities. And suddenly I'm here and I'm in rural areas in Zimbabwe looking at how climate smart agriculture compares to conventional agriculture, which I have zero experience in, but I'm learning so much from that experiences. And it's partly the strategy that I had in applying, but also partly chance that I actually got an interview for this position where there were probably a lot of other qualified candidates.
Interesting. And I think that all what you're saying is also matching with what you were saying about looking for diversity among candidates to get from different fields to the positions. What about you, Donna-Maria? Both of you have shared, like, you have very broad, long CVs, a lot of experience. But for the current position that you have now at CONCORD, what do you think, like, what led you there? What do you think, like, the experience or asset that you have for?
I would say there's many things I can say about that, but one very specific thing is you have to keep in mind that a lot of people are applying that has good qualifications. So what sets you apart? And I would say, because most of us here, we're either students or we have studied. I'm sorry. And what we can take from that is to really study for the job interview, or when writing the cover letter, when writing the CV, really analyze what they are looking for, even draw like mind maps, become really technical about your application, like show that you have studied the organization so much that you come across as an expert about it. And that will show, like, when you go to the job interview and they notice that you took a good amount of interest to learn about the positions, maybe you've read papers or documents or research about things connected to the specific area that you're going to work with, the dedication comes across. So the feedback I got from after my job interview was, yes, you had the qualification, but you also show dedication and passion. And that also, you have to have a bit of personality for that to come across. And it's okay to, like, for one job interview to not go as you expected. I was looking for jobs during 4 months. And during this time, I could network, and that was really good for me. So it's an opportunity. Each time you meet with a recruiter, it's an opportunity. So I think that dedication led me there, for one. For two, I'm really good at tweaking my experiences. So, for example, the sober movement in Brussels, we're working with alcohol and drug policy issues, but I was also monitoring the common agriculture policy on an EU level that has to do with agriculture. And then, so let's say I'm applying for a job that has to do with environment, then I can use that to exemplify how I can analyze agricultural issues on an EU level. So like really tweak your experiences and be creative with it. I could talk more, but I want to.
Yeah, but it's very important.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is also very time consuming. Like,
it is.
I mean, it's something maybe you feel like encouraged for the first job, the second job, but like as time goes, you're applying for a lot of jobs. You have to put a lot of effort in the.
And that's why I really, really want to emphasize that I was looking for a job during 4 months. Waking up 8, as a job, 8 to 5. Getting some exercise between that, meet some friends, ventilate, but it's tough and hang in there. Yeah.
But I really want to emphasize what you're saying about the tweaking. Like not just think that you have any experience that is irrelevant. Because try to find like what did I, when I was working at that restaurant, you learned maybe stress management or how to deal with people, handle conflicts. Like you can always lift some experiences that are relevant. What about you, Karl? The role that you ended up in. What do you think made you get there?
I got my current position because I did an internship before within the MFA, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and I'm pretty sure that's what made me got the job from the first place, because I was, so to speak, within the system, and so I didn't apply for this job, so to speak, from an outside perspective. I did it like from the inside. And to have that experience as doing an internship first and also doing it abroad and also doing it within the EU, because we have the EU presidency coming up in 20 days, I think, something like that. All those 3 different ways also led me to get the job from the first position, from the beginning. But I should also say it's not a permanent job, so I'm a substitute. It's not a fixed contract, because then you have to go to diplomatic training, as you talked about, Harald. So it's like a first way of getting in there is to do an internship, and then you get a job for a few months, and then you get another job for a few months, and then you, so to speak, within the system. And I would also say, my previous experiences working for an NGO and also studying different things like economics and business, and not that traditional political scientist person to only do that. I mean, was also great knowledge and strengths that I have with me when I applied for the internship from the first beginning in January. So I would say it's like a difference between both having your educational background and also the professional experience, and the internships are very important, I would say.
Yeah, I think the internship, also looking at this, even my own experience, and I think also very strongly within the civil society, that's what I have seen and met other people, that an internship is usually a very good way in. That's also how I started. After my studies, and did an internship, and then I was even like away for 4 years, had a child in between, did other things, but I still like had that relationship to my supervisor. So when I think I just posted on Facebook that I was looking for a new job, and she reached out to me. So also like, who mentioned patience? It was you, Alfred. Like maybe it's not leading anywhere right now, but you never know when those contacts that you make, when they can come at hand. So, yeah. You have already covered so many of my questions, I feel. And you have a lot of experience. If you look back, or looking at your current positions now, if you could go back to like when you were studying, is there anything that you feel that you would have added? Like a course or something like in retrospect that you think would have been a good asset that you have noticed? Like in general, when you have applied for jobs. What do you say, Robin?
I think that's an excellent question, and I think it relates to what the previous panel was also referring to. I would say, first of all, if you study something that you're really interested in, you should keep on studying it. I know that there's a lot of political scientists out there. There's plenty of us, I'd say, because I also took political science to a certain extent. There's no one who's looking for a pure political scientist. You never see that, like political scientist application. But if you really are interested in that field, you should really do that. What you can do, as the previous panel was relating to or referring to, is that you expand it with other courses. And I would highly recommend to take more technical or more hands-on courses which focuses on methodology, and I would say statistics. If you can do that, like data analysis and statistics is great. There's so many good courses. You can probably do them remotely nowadays as well. Also law, all legal courses give a very good understanding, like just the overview courses or the introductory courses and so on. I would also say that in general, methodology, I'm sure you hear this at your universities or wherever, everyone keeps pushing you about the methods and methodology, but it's really true that when you enter your professional career, there will be zero interest in what you wrote your bachelor's dissertation on. Like no one is interested in drug production in Yemen or whatever I wrote about. It's interesting for you and it's a good way to apply your methods. But if you become really good at the methods themselves, you will have so much to gain from that in your professional career. It's both the qualitative methods, interviewing, focus groups, whatever, and the quantitative methods. And I'll tell you this, there are so many political scientists out there, but there are very few who knows quantitative methods. So spending 1 or 2 semesters in statistics is absolutely terrific if you want to have a good hands-on job that is super interesting as well. For instance, in monitoring and evaluation, in knowledge management, there are many interesting positions in government agencies as well in Sweden that focuses on that. So I would say that's a keep to what you're interested in, but if you can widen it to courses that are more strategic and focuses on methods that you can use, that's great.
I think that also what you were saying, like that to be qualified is one thing, and that to have a political scientist background makes you qualified for a lot of jobs. But as you said, then to be the one standing out, like what do you have extra? What is it that's in your application that like is added to that? Yes. Do you have anything to add to that question?
Yeah, I think it also depends on our experiences with what type of jobs we've applied for. So in my case, going back, what I would advise myself to do, not to add more university courses. And the reason for that is that in my experience, I feel like recruiters have just looked, okay, she studied, and then moved on to my next experience. It has not been so important exactly what courses I took. I have not gotten questions on that. Thesis has been quite important because I've used that to tweak why I have knowledge in that particular area. But what I would advise myself to do is to much earlier start to focus on a language. I learned French when I was living in Brussels. I fell in love and got my heart broken, but I took French with me from that. And I appreciate that. And it has been very important for me because when I apply for jobs that are specifically for French speakers, now I'm getting answers back all of a sudden. So I would have advised myself to do that much earlier. And one more thing is to network. And I know networking has gotten a really bad reputation because maybe some people are milking it a bit and not doing it for right reasons. But in my case, I did not know anyone in Stockholm. And my dream was to live and work in Stockholm before. And I didn't know how to start and where to go. And so, yeah, building, like getting to know people. You can even on LinkedIn ask someone for a digital fika. People love to talk about themselves. You know, I'm here today because of that. They will share with you a lot of good advice, and people are generous who want to help each other. So like, make good use of that, just, you know, to get ideas and be inspired and not to give up and feel like, oh, nothing is going well for me. No, like be cheered up by that. So that's my advice.
Very good one. Yeah, also at FUF, just quickly mention that we have a lot of these networking events. We also have a mentorship program. If you become an active member with FUF, you also have an opportunity to get a mentor, which is a more senior professional working in the sector that you can have like one-on-ones with to share experience. It's also a way in. So yeah, networking is crucial.
Yeah, I totally agree with the languages. I mean, that's how also I got my internship in Brussels. I had to speak French to get that position. And so that's very important. I would do more French if I was younger. And I would do more French in French-speaking countries, because that's how you really learn a language. And you can do summer courses, for example. You can get CSM, like state money, to do summer courses as well. And you can, you know, have very many other fun things to do during that summer. But I would also say, like, do some technical courses, as Robin said as well. I got my job at RFSU because I've been studying a lot of business and economics. I did a lot of bookkeeping, I did a lot of controlling and those kind of things. And that was the role I was doing at RFSU as well. I was a controller, internal auditor, as it is in English. So I think with that theoretical mix between, or like a mix between theory and practical courses is a golden combination, I would say, and a lot of languages as well.
Does any one of you have like a voluntary engagement also, like that you've been engaged previously?
Yeah, I've been engaged here in FUF for many years, yeah. And I've also been engaged in Amnesty quite a lot, Amnesty International here in Stockholm. They have a very good student group at Stockholm University, and we have one representative over here. So just talk to him if you want to be more engaged. It's a very good organization. And I think those, you know, voluntary experiences also show that you are very interested in the issues and that you want to work for these things, and also, you know, gets you out on the streets and talk to more people, talk about these issues, and to learn how to address them and how to then use them in your current position, I would say.
In my case, I'm really passionate about intercultural dialogues. So I found an NGO, they're not very active anymore, but they work to counter Islamophobia and anti-Semitism, Dialog. So I volunteered, first I participated and then I volunteered as a camp leader. And that network has meant a lot to me afterwards. I'm still in contact with those participants. And then Kvinna to Kvinna, also in Gothenburg during my time also.
Do you feel that it has also played a part in like your career path? Has it also helped you for the jobs that you're applying, you think?
So I'm gonna be really, really honest. Not incredibly much. It has helped me that it's there on the CV. I think that's a thing you want to take off. Okay, this person is also engaging on the free time, but for me personally, it has helped me a lot because I've learned more and I've made friends that are very meaningful to my life until this day.
And I think it's also a way to try out new like theoretical areas if you're interested in like, okay, I want to work with maybe women's rights. Yeah. Then it's a good way maybe to try. But yeah, how do you feel? Has it helped you?
Yeah, for sure. I would say in very different ways. I mean, when I was volunteering for Amnesty, I learned a lot about human rights, obviously, and a lot about, you know, human rights in different countries. And those are things that I use in my everyday work now as well. And for FUF, I mean, I did a lot of communication work. I went to Visby and Almedalsveckan, and I had to interview politicians and people from the development sector and have to, you know, face my fear with a microphone like that. And I mean, those are things that you don't really get to acquire in
a position as a desk officer. I mean, and I think that's very, very valuable. Those things you can do when you're 19, 20, 25-ish, something like that, that you can then have with you. So I would say volunteerism very good.
Yeah, but because you're also mentioning some like technical skills that you got from it, like specifically conducting interviews.
Yeah, communications, doing podcasts. I did everything, writing in the magazine. Right?
Yeah. What about you, Robin?
Yeah, certainly. I've done a lot of volunteering, both relevant volunteering, Red Cross and union work and similar, and crap volunteering or whatever you want to call it, like more student-based social volunteering. I think both are great. I think you shouldn't necessarily do all volunteering just because you want to use it in your professional career. But I think a lot of it, as Karl said, can be used in your professional career. And so that is one of the purposes in doing it. The second purpose is what Donna was referring to. I think networking is one of the key skills that we in the ideal world, the best candidate always gets the job. But if we're honest, networking is very key to getting jobs and finding and knowing about jobs and finding a career path that makes sense to you. So I think volunteering has helped me a lot there. What I would say, there's a lot of volunteering, and I see it now as well because we do a lot of interviews here in my position for new positions at the WFP. When you have volunteered, and this is always the trick. I mean, we came back to that with a former panel as well. You're young and you're probably studying, a lot of you. What do I put on my CV when I don't have much to put on my CV, right? Like you have to put what you have. Everyone wants someone who has 5 years of work experience, but when are you going to get your first work experience? That's like the key catch-22, right? So I think you should put what you have, including volunteering, but make sure that you transcribe it in a relevant way. I've seen so many CVs where people write about, I don't know, what they did in a social club at university or in a very obscure kind of volunteer organization, and it doesn't make any sense to any recruiter what that was. Try to transcribe it and say, I worked with service, or I worked with whatever. I worked with recruitment. I worked with fundraising. If you work for Amnesty, for instance, it's enough. You can be very short in that regard. But I do think, yes, for me personally, it helped with volunteering, and it created a big network that I have a lot to gain from now in my career, basically.
Thank you. Yeah, and time is running, so I want to open for questions. Do you have any questions? Do we have any questions in the chat?
Not right now, not that there was one question from Robin that he has already answered, so not right now.
I do have one important thing that I do want to say, because we haven't touched upon that, and that's discrimination when applying for jobs. It's a really important topic. I will start with age. Sometimes I don't put my age on a CV if it's not required to, or a cover letter. That's just a tactic I use personally. If it's not required, I don't put it. Sometimes having a different ethnic background is a plus in many jobs, but sometimes it isn't. So that's also like a truth. I know many of us, we don't put our last name when we apply for jobs. That's very sad, but sometimes I've done that as well. But just wanted to mention that we do not participate on equal lika villkor. I don't know how to translate it. Yeah. So just to keep in mind that the norm, like the minority stress, is real in this process. I just want to acknowledge that.
That's true. Yeah. And I know that different organizations, different authorities, they have different procedures with the applications. I don't know, have you ever applied for a job with anonymous applications? Have you experienced any difference in that?
Yeah, intersectional recruitment processes such as RFSL uses. I come a long way there. When it comes to Sida, they're trying to develop now a system. It's long due. And one time I criticized them on their information box. And then they were looking for someone to work to develop the system. And I print screened my criticism and put it in the cover letter and send them to them. Oh, I'm already working with this. You might as well hire me. And in that case, I was selected for the next step, which was big because it's never happened to me.
So I just want to put that forward, that it helps intersectional recruitment process. They are complicated. So yeah, I understand why they are not used always.
I can mention that the first basis of the recruiting for the diplomatic training program is anonymous.
Yes.
I have a question.
Okay.
Do you put up on your CV, or do you just leave it out?
I used to do that.
Yeah.
I don't put a picture anymore, but maybe we can get some opinion from the recruiters about that. I don't know.
Yeah, do you have anything to say? Is it good to have a picture in your application? Is it necessary?
It's definitely not necessary. It's good. It helps you remember the person, but I think it's a bit odd to have a photo. Maybe I recommend that you don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm just confused when it comes to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So if it's anonymous, and for example, we need to have an international background, and I'm born in South Africa, I'm Serbian and live in Sweden now, and I study communications, and I'm confused how I can show this, that I have the international experience.
Well, it might show in your CV or your cover letter. And if you pass the first phases of the recruiting, then eventually it will come out through interviews, in-depth interviews.
So I think, yeah, being anonymous is just that you don't show the name, right? Yeah. But it's all the information is there about the name.
Can I just add quickly to that regard? I know, so I'm seconded to the UN through Sida, so my recruitment process was not handled by the UN more than partly, but UN does a lot of anonymous recruiting. It's a very rigorous kind of anonymous procedure through technical tests and other assessments up to an interview where you always have a panel to decide. So that the advantage of that is obviously that it's trying to reduce discrimination, which does occur. And I think we have to be frank about that. The disadvantage could be that you need more specific technical skills to get to specific positions. So for instance, I probably wouldn't stand an anonymous interview or a recruitment process for the position that I'm currently in. But obviously, I think discrimination is a more important value to go towards. So, but I just wanted to stress that if you apply for UN positions, it will be partly a completely anonymous process.
More questions? Yes.
So since we're talking about it, I wonder, if you have colleagues that are born outside of Sweden, but came here to study and then stayed here to find their career path. Do you have colleagues at your offices, like someone like me, who came here to study and then came to find a job? I wonder if how is this reality in the workplaces?
Well, in my workplace, the only requirement in that sense is that you have a Swedish citizenship. Whether you're born outside of Sweden or you were born as a citizen of another country, that's irrelevant as long as you at the moment you're applying is a Swedish citizen. And you can have double citizenships or triple.
In my workplace, we have 2 examples of that, which is a lot because we're only a team of 12. So already it's good. In that case, it has been that also I think my workplace has made it a priority to try to diversify the work team, because we do want different, how can we say, way of, we do want to create diversity, not just for the diversity's sake, but also because it generates
perspectives.
Yeah, perspectives. But those people who have been hired, it's not like they just been picked because they have a different background. No, it has to be just an added value. But it's, yeah, so we do have that. But these are experienced people who worked in Afghanistan, worked in the EU. They're just not fluent in Swedish, and that's not the biggest problem always.
Well, but I think, yes, Swedish is often required. So that might be the challenge, maybe more than where you come from. But to have a certain like level of the language. Like for our internship program, we quite some years back now, we also opened up for international students, so that we have among the 40 positions that we have, around 1/3 or 1/4, like 25% of the positions usually are that they don't require Swedish to do the internship. So that is also opened up a bit from FUF side. Yeah. Any other questions?
Just adding to that, just the same question basically. The thing is, I guess the 0 for a European citizen is a very different 0 for us who are non-European or we don't hold a good passport. So like there's a different 0. So basically us after studies, we have to find something to be able to extend our visa or permit. So that job might not necessarily be our favorite because of our like passport or whatsoever. So the fact that we have to kind of work in some completely different things to just be able to stay in the country and then apply for something, because a lot of these internships I've been looking at, they look for, okay, citizenship, I guess, and that's necessary for being a diplomat, but also permanent residence, which also takes up to 5 years or something to gain. And in this 5 years, you have to find something to be able to extend your visa or permit. And that is very time consuming. So by the time that you actually get to a level where you have a permanent residence to be eligible to apply, then you're probably 28, you're probably 30 or something, and then you have a completely different experience just because of the extension of your visa procedure. So yeah, I was also wondering what the process is and how is it treated. But I guess I got my answer, so I just wanted to put it out there.
Yeah, the work permit is another added challenge too.
Maybe that is a perfect discussion for the mingle.
Yes. Yeah, time is running and the pizzas have arrived, I guess. Yeah. I hope you have time to stick around. It's 7:15, but you are welcome to stay a bit longer if you want. Should we just round up very quickly? Do you have like final career tips? What do you want? Like final words? Robin, do you want to start?
Sure, I can start. There's a lot of things to say, but I do want to say that all roads do not lead to Rome. Be kind to yourself. Do a combination of strategy and things that you really enjoy doing. And I mean, like if you really enjoy studying a specific field, do it. It will help you in the long run. Take your driving license if you want to go to an African country, because otherwise it will be difficult to get around. Use LinkedIn. It's actually better than you'd think. I'm not a big fan of LinkedIn, but it's actually great in many regards. And I think try it if you are qualified. Like there are so many, I've been through a lot of application processes, a lot of interviews. I've written hundreds of CVs, to be honest. I've been disappointed a zillion times for positions I didn't get. But I think all of those build up your experiences in recruitment processes too. It teaches you how to write. It teaches you what you need to focus on. It teaches you how to go through interviews and so on. And it's never too late. I didn't think I would end up here at this moment with a family and everything who's suddenly living in Africa. So really, be kind to yourself, do what you love to do, and combine strategy and what you love to do, and you'd be great off, so to speak. And I can't join the mingle, but feel free to reach out to me bilaterally if you want to have any kind of conversation or tips or whatever.
Yeah, maybe you can put in the chat for those who are still there, and I can also share with you if you're interested his contacts.
Yeah, I think Robin said it's very good, actually. But I mean, my tip would be apply broadly, and as Alfred said before, be patient. I mean, it's also a big portion of luck that I got my job, I would say, in my internship. It's not basically because I studied this and did that. It's also because someone got pregnant, I got that job, or someone, you know, so might need to. It's those things as well that makes you get experience and jobs and end up where you are. So, yeah.
I think my panelists have covered everything, but just one thing that I could say, if you get an internship or opportunity somewhere, ask them for job tasks that you think will be necessary in the future. Like if you want to do communication, but you got an internship for HR. Just ask them, oh, is it okay if I help to write an article every now and then so that you can put it in your CV later? Be strategic about that. And yeah, I think that was what I will send with you. Yeah.
Thank you. And yeah, continue to ask your questions during the mingle. Thank you so much. Thank you, Robin. I think it's even a bit later, or no? What's the time in Zimbabwe now?
It's 20 past 20, so yes, it's a bit later, okay. But it's okay. And power will remain the whole session, so I'm happy.
Yeah.
It's not a guarantee here, so enjoy it while you're still at home. Enjoy that you have electricity and Wi-Fi and all those other nice things, because when you get here, you'll have another experience, and that's great.
Thank you so much. And
take care, everyone.
To everyone that participated via Zoom.